guys, we're back and I'm going to give you a great recipe today to make meat and gravy. This is going to be beef and gravy, but it's going to be done the same no matter what meat you're using. And this is going to make a great, rich, thick, delicious gravy with the meat in it. And I see a lot of canning videos where people are saying things like, well, you know, it's not as good as making it from scratch, homemade on the stovetop, but it's convenient, it's canned, it lasts for years on the shelf. So, you know, there's that. If it's not as good or better than what you're cooking on the stovetop from scratch, then you're not doing it right. So, and I think the reason that many say that is because they're using the very most simplistic, most basic canning methods and recipes, which is great when you're in a pinch and need to do a whole lot really quick, you know, like the raw packing, which is what I showed you in some of the previous videos. But when you have time to really put just a little tiny bit more effort and love into it, you're gonna get meals that are so delicious that taste like you put so much time and effort into it. That's actually easier than cooking it on the stovetop and taste a lot better. And I don't say that lightly because I'm a pretty good cook and I like to cook everything from scratch and I like things to be, you know, very good and I put a lot of love and health and nutrition into what I'm doing. So to get these to taste better even than what I'm doing on the stovetop and be easier because I'm doing it in bulk and putting it on the shelf, that when I need it, all I have to do is pop the lid off and reheat it. This is going to be great. I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos like this for you, so stay tuned, like, subscribe, click the bell. We have more meal in a jar videos coming, more MRE, homemade MREs, and Rebel canning recipes that will be coming very shortly. But we're going to start with this one. This is, again, meat and gravy, and it's really easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. So I have a chuck roast and an eye of round roast. So you want to use meats that are going to be a little tougher. It'll hold together better in the long pressure cooking times and give you more flavor. So we're going to cut that up. You want to cut them into 1 to 2 inch pieces, and you want to trim off any excess fat, like all of that. You don't want to leave that on there. Cut up your seasonings. One of the benefits to hot packing is that when you add your seasonings, you're going to wilt them down in the pot, so they won't take up that much space in the jars because you're going to get a lot of shrinkage with things like onions. Get all of your meat in a pot and all of your greens cut. Add you a little lard or oil of your liking and season your meat at this point with whatever you like. I always put some salt and pepper and a little seasonal garlic powder, onion. Whatever it is that you like, give it a good season and stir it around. If you're cooking large portions of meat like this, it doesn't always do it with small amounts, but when you're cooking large amounts, immediately before your meat starts really, you know, browning to make your gravy, it's going to start putting off broth. I pull that broth off. Some people let it just cook all the way down until the meat browns. I think your meat will cook too much for pressure canning and you're losing a lot of good brothy gravy. So I pull it off when it's coming out a lot like this early, and I'll add it back after the meat and onions brown when I'm ready to start my gravy base. Alright, I pulled off 4 cups of broth that it immediately made, and now we're immediately going into a sizzle. So we're going to brown our meat quickly. If we had to wait for all 4 of those cups to evaporate, that would have taken forever, and then you would have added water or broth back in after in order to make your gravy. So for me, pulling the broth off that it makes immediately saves a lot of time and gives you a better flavor tasting product on the back end, because you're going to put that same meat broth from the beef right back in when you need it and not have to add plain water to make your gravy with. But I don't know if you can see, and I know the focus is going to be a little wonky, but at the bottom of that pot, that's what's going to make our gravy. So our meat is cooked enough, so we need to go ahead and add our seasoning really quick and let that wilt and add its flavors to the meat next. You want to stir your onions in for just a minute or two to let them kind of wilt down. If you were going to add a thickener for your gravy, this is the point at which I would add it. All right, so let's take a minute really quick to talk about thickeners. Typically, the FDA does not recommend that you use thickeners when you're canning. And the reason for that is because that when you thicken something up, it's going to kind of insulate and make it not so easy for the temperatures to penetrate to the middle of your jars. But realistically, that's only if you're going to thicken something up to the consistency of like, pumpkin pie filling. If you're adding just a little bit of thickener to, like a gravy, like, flour or cornstarch, if it's a little bit, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. So a lot of people in their canning do use it. But for me personally, I find it's just as easy to not use any thickener when I'm cooking my gravy and just add it after when you bring it back up to temperature when you heat it on the stove. So typically that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But there is another option. For many people who they use what's called clear gel. And you can use any brand of clear gel that you want. You're probably going to have to order it off the internet, though. Most stores are not going to carry it. And all it is a modified cornstarch that is used primarily for canning. This is good to use like in your pie fillings or anything like that. So you can use the clear gel. It is safe for canning. It is a modified cornstarch. It's not as easy to get. Again, for gravies and things like that, I think it's just as easy to just go ahead and add a little bit of cornstarch to your gravy when you reheat it. And I'll show you what that looks like so you can see how delicious this is and how thick and rich and amazing when you're ready to eat it. So now that our onions are wilted, we're going to go ahead and add whatever liquid you're going to do. We're going to put our broth right back in. The broth that we took out earlier from the gravy. And if you want to add any more water or broth to it, you can do that. We use a snub-nosed spoon for this when you're making gravy. And that's to be able to scratch the bottom of the pot and pull all that stuff off back into the liquid. That's going to give your gravy its thickness and its flavor. This is some chicken broth that I have that I need to get out the fridge. It's something I made. It's just kind of in my way, so I'm going to go ahead and add that to it. And that's going to be all the liquid that I need. Then I turn the heat off. And first I'm going to put my meat, because I want to kind of evenly distribute it throughout my 7 jars, kind of get a gauge of what that would look like. And then I'll come back and put the juice after. See, so I have my meat, and now I'm going to ladle in the broth. If you find that you're going to have more gravy than what your jars can hold, then just turn your heat on and reduce the gravy down, concentrate it more. But chances are that's not going to be the problem. So to make sure that I evenly have the flavor spread throughout, what I'm going to do with this is go ahead and add 2 ladles of gravy per jar, and then just keep going around and around until I run out of gravy. And then that way, if I run short on gravy, I can just add hot water to the jar for the rest of it. Since this gravy is a concentrate anyway, doesn't really matter that you add a little hot water. Once your jars are full, you want to clean your rims. A little warm water or vinegar. You also could add some vegetables, potatoes and carrots and so forth to these jars, and it would be a wonderful beef stew. Alright, and put your lids on, finger tight.
Next, you need to process your jars. If you're using the preferred pressure canning method, then you're going to pressure can for 90 minutes for quart jars or 70 minutes for pints. At 10 pounds of pressure at sea level, adjust for altitude. If you've never pressure canned before and you would like step-by-step instructions, you can get them by watching this video. If you're using the heritage method of water bath canning, then you're going to want to water bath them for 3 hours. You can go longer, but you cannot go less than 3 hours. So they need to be bathed for a minimum of 3 hours. If you've never done this process and you would like to see a step-by-step demonstration, you can get it by watching this video. Now I'm going to show you how you would prepare this as a gravy when you take it out of the jar and warm it up to thicken it and serve. You always have a little layer of fat at the top of your jars. I take that off first and warm it up, and then add my cornstarch, or if you prefer to use flour, you can do that to get a roux flavor, and heat it up in the hot oil. Once the thickener is well incorporated, I pour the contents of the jar into the pot and heat it up to a boil. Alright, you can see it only took a few minutes to get it up to a boil after adding a little bit of cornstarch, and so now it's really nice and thick, great gravy. This is so good and so easy, and you can do so many meals at one time. That's how you make meat and gravy in a canning jar. What you think?
Delicious. Amazing. Really good. I got 2 words for y'all. Do it. Do it. Do it.